The janitor leaned in my ear with a trembling voice. "Check your wife's office after midnight. But do it quietly." I did, and what I saw on the other side made my legs go weak. That's why his hands trembled when he told me. That's why his eyes avoided mine. I obeyed. That night, I went downstairs barefoot, crept to the dark oak door, and turned the doorknob with millimeter precision. What I saw on the other side made my legs weak. It wasn't what I expected. It was worse, much worse. But to understand how I got to that moment, I need to go back. I need to tell you who I was before that night, before everything fell apart. My name is Alfredo. I'm 52 years old, and for the last 2 decades, I built what I believed was a perfect life. Elena and I met in college. She studied administration. I studied business engineering. We fell in love like people who believe the future is a sure promise. We married young, started an import and distribution company for industrial equipment together. We started in a borrowed garage with more dreams than capital. We worked 18 hours a day. We shared every decision, every triumph, every failure, or so I thought. 20 years later, we had our own offices in the city center, a 3-story building with large windows and gray marble floors. 50 employees, contracts with the country's main companies. Our house was spacious and bright. We had 2 cars in the garage, vacations once a year, dinners on Sundays. Everything seemed to be in its place. Everything worked like a perfectly oiled machine. But there was something I couldn't name, a vague feeling, a small void that grew silently, like an invisible crack in a solid wall. Elena was always meticulous, organized. She controlled the company's finances with surgical precision. I was in charge of operations, negotiations, contact with suppliers. She handled the numbers, the accounts, the reports. I trusted her blindly. We were equal partners, 50% each. That's how we had signed it from the beginning. I never questioned anything. I never checked what she did. Why would I? She was my wife, my partner, the person who slept next to me every night, the person with whom I had built everything from scratch. But in the last 6 months, something changed. Nothing dramatic, nothing I could point my finger at and say, "Here's the problem." Just little things. Details. Elena started staying longer at the office. She'd get home around 10 p.m., sometimes later. She said there was a lot of work, month-end closings, internal audits, new contracts that required special attention. I would nod, heat up her dinner, ask her how her day had been. She would answer in monosyllables, tired, always tired. We stopped having dinner together. We stopped talking like before. The words between us became functional. Practical. Did you pay the insurance? The order from Monterey arrived. Did you talk to the accountant? Everything was logistics. Nothing was intimacy. I tried to get closer several times. I suggested going out to dinner, taking a weekend off. She always had an excuse. There was always something urgent, something that couldn't wait. I started to feel like a tenant in my own life, someone who occupied space but didn't really participate in anything important. Then there were the closed doors. Elena started keeping her office locked. Even during the day, when I walked by her door, I found it closed. I would hear her voice inside. She would be on the phone, long conversations. Sometimes she would laugh. Other times her tone was serious, almost conspiratorial. When I knocked and entered, she would hang up quickly. She would look at me with a neutral expression. "Do you need something?" Always that question, "Do you need something?" As if I were just another employee, as if I needed permission to be in my own company. One afternoon, I needed a document, an old contract with a supplier from Guadalajara. I asked Maria, our secretary, to look for it in the file in Elena's office. Maria literally turned pale. Her face lost its color. She said she didn't have a key, that Elena hadn't given her access to that file, that she would have to wait for her to come back. Something in her eyes disturbed me. Maria had been working with us for 8 years. She was efficient, quiet, always proper. But that day, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. I didn't insist. I waited for Elena. When she arrived, I asked for the document. She gave it to me without a word, without explanations, without excuses. I started to notice more things. Her brother, Nicholas, frequently appeared in the office. Nicholas never worked with us. He had his own businesses. Or so he said. I never liked him. There was something about him, something fake, something calculating, but he was Elena's brother. I tolerated him, greeted him with forced politeness. Lately, I saw him leaving Elena's office almost every day. They would lock themselves in for hours. When I asked what they were doing, Elena said Nicholas was helping her with some legal matters, tax issues. Nothing important. I would nod. I trusted. I always trusted. One night, I came home late. I had been at a dinner with a potential client. Elena was already in bed, or so I thought. I passed by her study. The door was ajar. I heard her voice. She was on the phone. Her tone was different, light, almost cheerful. She said something that stopped me in my tracks. "Don't worry. He doesn't check anything. He trusts too much." There was a silence, then a brief laugh. "It's convenient, very convenient." I felt a pang in my chest. She was talking about me. I pushed the door gently. She looked up, hung up the call immediately. "What are you doing?" "Awake," I asked. "Work," she replied. "Always work." She closed the laptop, turned off the light, passed by me without looking. I stood in that empty study, feeling that something fundamental had just broken, but I didn't know what. The following days were strange. Elena was more distant, colder. Nicholas appeared 3 times that week. Maria avoided my gaze. Ruben, the cleaning employee, started watching me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Pity, maybe pity. I kept working, kept performing, kept pretending everything was fine, but inside something was screaming, something was demanding attention, something was telling me to open my eyes. And then that night came, the night Ruben gathered enough courage to break his silence. It was Friday, almost 9 p.m. The office was empty, except for Ruben, who was finishing his cleaning routine. I had come back because I forgot some documents I needed to review over the weekend. I went upstairs. The building was silent. Only the sound of Ruben's mop against the marble floor of the second level could be heard. I greeted him with a gesture. He responded with a nod. I entered my office, looked for the papers. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around. Ruben was standing in the doorway. His face showed an internal struggle. His hands gripped the mop handle so tightly that his knuckles were white. "Everything okay, Ruben?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He looked down the hallway, looked behind him, swallowed. "Mr. Alfredo," he finally said. His voice was barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something, but I'm scared, very scared." I approached. "Scared of what?" He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there were unshed tears. "I've been working here for 4 years. You've always treated me with respect, always paid me well, never made me feel less. That's why I can't stay silent anymore. My conscience won't let me sleep, won't let me live." My heart started to beat faster. "What is it, Ruben? Tell me." He looked down the hallway again. He came closer. He lowered his voice to a trembling whisper. "Take a look at your wife's office after midnight, but do it quietly. Don't turn on the lights, don't make any noise, just look, just see what's there, and then you'll understand. You'll understand everything." His words hit me like stones. "What are you talking about? What's in that office?" Ruben shook his head. "I can't say more. If they find out, I lose everything. I lose my job. I lose my livelihood. I have a family. I have children, but you deserve to know. You deserve the truth. Please do it tonight after midnight." I tried to stop him. I tried to ask more questions, but he had already turned around. He walked quickly down the hallway, dragging his cleaning cart. He disappeared down the stairs. I was left alone in my office with a racing heart and 1,000 questions crowding my mind. What had Ruben seen? Why so much fear? Why such urgency? I looked at my watch. 9:15. Almost 3 hours until midnight. 3 hours that felt like an eternity. I drove home on autopilot. Elena wasn't there. She left a note on the refrigerator. "Dinner with clients. I'll be late. Don't wait for me." Her perfect handwriting on the white paper. I heated something in the microwave. I didn't take a bite. I sat in the living room. The TV on, but muted. The images passed before my eyes without registering. I could only think of Ruben's words, of his fear, of his guilt, of that locked office, of all those months of distance, of closed doors, of cut-off conversations, of averted gazes. At 11:30, I made a decision. I went back to the building. The streets were deserted. I parked half a block away, turned off the engine. I waited. The city slept around me. Only a few windows remained lit in distant buildings. I looked at my watch every 30 seconds. 11:40, 11:45, 11:50. Time crawled by as if wounded. My breathing was shallow. My hands were sweating. At 12:05, I got out of the car, walked towards the building, took out my key, opened the main door. The lobby was dark. I didn't turn on any lights. I knew every inch of that place. I had built it with my own hands, with my own effort. I went up the stairs slowly. Each step creaked under my weight. I reached the second floor. The hallway was plunged in shadows. Only the street light entered faintly through the windows. Elena's office was at the end. Her dark oak door closed as always. I approached. My bare feet made no noise against the cold floor. I stopped in front of the door, took a deep breath, extended my hand. The doorknob was ice cold. I turned it with millimeter precision. The lock gave way. It wasn't locked. That was already strange. Elena always locked it. Always. I pushed the door slowly. The hinges whispered. I entered. The office was dark, but not completely. Elena's computer screen was on. It cast a ghostly glow on the desk. I approached. My heart was hammering against my ribs. There were papers scattered everywhere. Many papers, bank statements, bank transfers, legal documents. I picked one up. My eyes took a moment to adjust to the gloom. When they did, I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. It was a bank statement from an account I didn't know in Elena's name, monthly movements, large deposits, very large, $50,000, $70,000, $100,000. Transfers from a company's accounts. Transfers I never authorized, never saw, never knew existed. I picked up another paper, another bank statement, another unknown account, this one in Nicholas's name. The same amounts, the same dates, money leaving our company, money being systematically diverted for months, for years maybe. My legs started to tremble. I sat in Elena's chair because I could no longer stand. I picked up papers, fake contracts, inflated invoices, non-existent suppliers. It was all there, all meticulously documented. Elena and Nicholas had created a perfect system. They diverted funds, hid them, moved them between accounts, and I signed everything without checking. I trusted, I always trusted. I was a useful idiot who worked while they enriched themselves behind my back. But that wasn't the worst. On the desk was a digital recorder, small, black, with a flashing red light. It was on. Why was on? I pressed the play button. I heard voices. Elena's voice, Nicholas's voice. A recent conversation, maybe from that very afternoon. I listened, and every word was a stab. Nicholas's voice. How much have we accumulated? Elena's voice. Close to $2 million. Spread across 6 different accounts. He suspects nothing. He never suspects. Nicholas's laugh. It's incredible. 20 years, and he never checked a single paper. Elena. That's why I married him. He's hardworking, he's reliable, he's convenient, but he's not smart. He never was. He's only good for working like a donkey while we live well. Another crueler laugh this time. Nicholas. How much longer to close everything? Elena. 6 months maximum. We transfer what's left, liquidate some assets, and disappear. He'll be left with the debts, with the problems, with nothing. I stopped the recording. I couldn't listen anymore. I felt nauseous, I felt rage, I felt pain, a pain so deep I couldn't place it. Elena, my wife, the person I shared 20 years with, the person I trusted blindly, had used me, had manipulated me, had stolen from me. And not just money, she had stolen my respect, my dignity, my years. She called me a donkey. She said I was only good for working. She said I was convenient. That word convenient echoed in my head like a broken bell. My hand was shaking so much I almost dropped the papers. I took a deep breath. I tried to calm down. I tried to think. There were more things on the desk. A manila folder. I opened it. Inside were legal documents, a draft divorce, already written, almost ready. Elena planned to leave me. She planned to keep half of everything according to our original contract, but first she was diverting millions. Millions I could never claim because technically they came from legal company accounts. She had planned everything, every detail, every move, while I slept next to her, while I asked her how her day had been, while I trusted. I got up, my legs barely holding me. I stumbled out of that office. I closed the door behind me. I went down the stairs, clinging to the handrail. I left the building. The cold morning air hit my face. I vomited in the parking lot. I vomited until there was nothing left inside. Just emptiness, just betrayal, just ruins. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I couldn't be in the same space I shared with her. I couldn't sleep in the same bed. I couldn't pretend everything was the same when my entire world had just collapsed. I drove aimlessly for hours. The empty streets of the early morning, the traffic lights changing color for no one. I ended up parked in front of a closed park. I turned off the engine. I sat there watching the darkness slowly turn into a dirty gray. The saddest sunrise of my life. When did it all start? When did I stop matching? When did I become that useful donkey Elena spoke of with such naturalness? I went over every year of our marriage looking for signs, looking for the exact moment she decided to betray me, but I couldn't find it. Maybe she never loved me. Maybe from the beginning I was just a tool, someone who worked hard, someone who signed papers without reading, someone convenient. That word kept resonating. Convenient. As if I were an object. As if I had no feelings. As if 20 years of my life were worth nothing. The phone vibrated several times. Messages from Elena. Where are you? Why didn't you come home to sleep? Call me. I deleted the messages without replying. I wasn't ready to face her. Not yet. First I needed to think. I needed a plan. Because if I had learned anything that night, it was that Elena always had a plan. She left nothing to chance. Every move calculated, every word measured. While I lived in naivety, she played chess. And I didn't even know I was on the board. When the sun was fully up, I started the car. I drove to a small coffee shop on the outskirts. I ordered a black coffee that I didn't touch. I sat at a table in the back. I took out my phone. I searched online for lawyers specializing in corporate fraud. I found one with good references. I dialed. A secretary answered. I asked for an urgent appointment. They gave me a slot for that afternoon. I accepted. Then I called my bank. I asked for the manager. I had known him for years. I asked for an immediate meeting. He said he would wait for me in an hour. I went to the bank first. The manager received me in his private office. I explained the situation without giving compromising details. I need to review all the movements of my company's accounts for the last 3 years. He frowned. That's a lot of information, Mr. Alfredo. Is there a problem? There might be, I replied. I need to be sure. He nodded. He gave me temporary digital access to the complete records. I left there with a tablet full of information. I spent the next 4 hours in my car reviewing every transaction, every transfer, every deposit. What I found surpassed my worst fears. Elena hadn't diverted just $2 million. She had diverted almost $4 million in the last 5 years. For million that left our company in ways so subtle, it was impossible to detect without specifically looking. Small amounts here, inflated invoices there, phantom suppliers, non-existent bonuses, duplicate payments that only existed on paper. She had turned theft into an art, and I had signed everything, every damn document. At 3 in the afternoon, I arrived at the lawyer's office. His name was Alvaro, a man of about 60. Serious look, direct manners. I told him everything. I showed him the papers I photographed in Elena's office. I showed him the bank records. I showed him the recordings. He listened in silence. He took notes. Occasionally, when I finished, he leaned back in his chair, exhaled slowly. This is serious, Mr. Alfredo, very serious. We're talking about fraud, embezzlement, possibly money laundering. Your wife and your brother-in-law could face serious criminal charges. Can I recover what they stole? I asked. Alvaro clasped his hands. We could try, but it will be a long, complicated process. We need to act quickly before they move more money, before the funds disappear. I gave him permission to do whatever was necessary. I signed powers of attorney, authorizations. Alvaro started working immediately. He called a forensic accountant. He called a private investigator. He assembled a team in a matter of hours. He told me, don't confront your wife yet. Don't tell her anything. Act normal. We need time to secure the accounts, to freeze the assets, to build the case. Act normal. How was I supposed to act normal? But I nodded. I understood the strategy. If Elena suspected anything, she would move the money immediately. She would disappear. She would leave me with nothing. I needed to pretend. I needed to lie, just as she had lied for years. The irony was bitter. I returned home around 7 p.m. Elena was in the kitchen, making a salad. She looked up when I came in. Her expression was of controlled annoyance. "Where were you all day? Your phone was off. I had to cancel a meeting because I needed your signature." I invented an excuse. Problems with a supplier. I had to travel to Querétaro on an emergency. There was no signal on the highway. "I'm sorry." She studied me with her gaze, looking for cracks, looking for lies, but I had learned from the best. I kept my face neutral, my voice calm. She accepted my explanation. We had dinner in silence. I pushed the food around on my plate without tasting anything. She constantly checked her phone. That routine that I had accepted as normal for months now seemed obscene to me. Who was she talking to? Nicholas? Some other accomplice? How many people knew I was the idiot of the story? I swallowed my rage. I swallowed my pain. I kept eating mechanically. That night, we slept in the same bed. She with her back to me, as always. I staring at the ceiling in the dark, thinking, planning, going over every detail of what Alvaro had told me. The forensic accountant needed 3 days to finish the complete analysis. The private investigator was already tracking the offshore accounts. Alvaro would prepare a civil lawsuit and file criminal charges simultaneously, but we needed physical evidence. We needed those original documents from Elena's office. We needed that recorder. The next day, I acted with absolute normalcy. I arrived at the office early. I greeted the employees. I checked emails, answered calls. Elena arrived an hour later, went straight to her office, locked the door. As always, Nicholas appeared at noon, entered Elena's office without knocking. They were locked in for almost 2 hours. When he came out, he greeted me with that fake smile he always used. "How's everything, Alfredo?" "Excellent," I replied. "Everything under control." He nodded, left whistling. Maria passed by my office with some documents. I stopped her. "Maria, I need to ask you something." She immediately turned pale. Her hands trembled. She lowered her voice. "Mr. Alfredo, I don't want any trouble. Please, don't involve me in anything." Her reaction confirmed what I suspected. She knew everything. "Relax, Maria. I'm not going to get you into trouble. I just need to know one thing. How long have you known what's going on?" She closed her eyes. Silent tears rolled down her cheeks. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years, Mr. Alfredo. I didn't want to. She forced me. She told me if I spoke, she would fire me, leave me without references, destroy me. I have 2 children in college. I couldn't lose this job. I'm sorry, so sorry. I put a hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault, Maria. None of this is your fault." She sobbed. "You already know everything." I nodded. "I know, but I need your help. I need you to keep acting normal, not to tell Elena anything, to keep doing your job as always. Can you do that?" She nodded quickly. "Whatever you need, anything. Just please don't fire me." "I'm not going to fire you, Maria. On the contrary, when this is over, you'll get the recognition you deserve. I promise." That afternoon, Ruben appeared for his cleaning shift. I called him in my office. I closed the door. He came in scared. He thought I was going to fire him, to yell at him for meddling where he wasn't called. But what I did was shake his hand. "Thank you, Ruben. Thank you for having the courage to tell me the truth. Thank you for not staying silent." He broke down. He cried in front of me. "Mr. Alfredo, I saw so many things. So many. I heard them talk. I saw them laugh at you, and it hurt. It hurt my soul because you were always good to me. You always treated me like a person, not like trash, but I was scared. I have a family. I have responsibilities. Forgive me for taking so long." "There's nothing to forgive," I said. "You did the right thing." He wiped away his tears. "What's going to happen now?" "Justice," I replied. "Justice is going to happen." The following days were a play. I played the role of the trusting husband, the naive partner, the man who suspected nothing. Every morning I got up, had breakfast with Elena, asked her about her day, smiled when necessary, nodded when she talked about meetings and projects. Inside I was a contained volcano, but on the outside, absolute calm. I had learned something important. Elena only had power over me as long as I remained ignorant. Now that I knew the truth, the balance had shifted. She just hadn't realized it yet. Alvaro worked tirelessly. The forensic accountant finished his analysis in 4 days instead of 3. The results were devastating. Elena and Nicholas had diverted exactly $4,200,000 in 5 years. They had created a network of shell companies, accounts in tax havens, cross-transfers that made it almost impossible to track the money, almost because the accountant was very good at his job. He followed every penny, documented every transaction, built a precise timeline, a complete financial autopsy. The private investigator discovered something else. Elena and Nicholas had bought properties. A house on the beach, an apartment in Mexico City, 2 commercial properties, all in the name of offshore companies, all paid for with diverted money. He also found something that chilled my blood. Plane tickets. Elena and Nicholas had tickets purchased for Spain. Departure date, March 15th. Exactly 6 weeks away. They were going to disappear. Exactly as they had planned in that recording. 6 months, Elena had said. We were in the final countdown. Alvaro called an urgent meeting in his office. He, the forensic accountant, the investigator, and I attended. They closed the door, spread documents on the table. We have everything we need, Alvaro said. We can proceed now, but I need you to understand something, Mr. Alfredo. When we activate this, there's no going back. Your wife will face criminal charges. Your brother-in-law, too. They will probably go to prison. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the documents, the evidence, the numbers. $4,200,000. 20 years of marriage. Useful donkey, convenient. I'm prepared, I asked. I've been preparing my whole life to do the right thing. Proceed. Alvaro nodded. We'll file a civil lawsuit tomorrow morning. Simultaneously, we'll file a criminal complaint for fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. We'll request the immediate freezing of all associated accounts. A judge will issue restraining orders. Elena and Nicholas won't be able to move a single penny. Then comes the hard part, the investigations, the interrogations, the trial. This could take years. Years, I repeated. Alvaro nodded gravely. The judicial system is slow, but eventually we'll get justice, and most importantly, we'll recover your assets. I left that meeting with a mixture of relief and terror. Relief because I was finally doing something. Terror because I knew that when everything exploded, my life would change forever. There would be no reconciliation, no going back. Elena would hate me. Her family would hate me. Probably many people who didn't know the truth would see me as the villain, the cruel husband who put his wife in jail, but I no longer cared. They had robbed me. They had humiliated me. They had used me, and that couldn't go without consequences. That night, I came home later than usual. Elena was in the living room, watching TV. She looked up. Where were you? Meeting with the lawyer, I replied. We have problems with the contract. Nothing serious. It will be resolved next week. It was a half-truth. Technically, I had been with the lawyer. She didn't need to know the details. She accepted my explanation without questioning it. She went back to her show. I went up to the room. I showered. I got into bed. She came up an hour later. She got into bed without a word. She turned off the light. In the dark, I heard her breathing become slow and deep. She slept peacefully, without guilt, without remorse. While I hadn't really slept in days, I wondered if she ever felt anything for me. If there was a real moment in these 20 years, maybe at the beginning, maybe when we were young and struggled together, maybe before money and power corrupted her. Or maybe never. Maybe I was always just a means to an end, an investment, someone who worked hard so she could reap the benefits. The answer no longer mattered. What mattered was closing this chapter, getting my dignity back, moving on. The next day dawned gray. Low clouds threatened rain. I got up early. I had breakfast alone. Elena was still asleep. I left the house before she woke up. I went straight to the office. I arrived before anyone else. I locked myself in my office. I checked emails, pretended normalcy. At 9, the employees started arriving. Maria greeted me with a nervous smile. She knew something was about to happen. I had asked her to trust me, to hold on a little longer. Elena arrived at 9:30, passed by my office without looking at me, straight to hers. She locked the door. The usual. At 10:15, my phone vibrated. A message from Alvaro. Done. The lawsuits are filed. The court orders have been issued. In 30 minutes, they will arrive to notify her. I felt a knot in my stomach. 30 minutes, half an hour before everything changed. I took a deep breath. I prepared myself mentally. This was necessary. This was fair. I couldn't back down now. At 10:45, I heard a commotion in the hallway. Loud voices, hurried steps. I came out of my office. 2 court officers were in front of Elena's door. A third was knocking insistently. Elena opened. Her face showed irritation. What's going on? Who are you? One of the officers extended documents. Elena Martinez, you have a civil lawsuit for fraud and a criminal complaint for embezzlement and money laundering. These are the official notifications. We also have a court order to freeze accounts and restrict movements. The color drained from Elena's face. She took the papers with trembling hands, read them quickly. Her eyes widened. She looked up. She saw me standing in the hallway, and in that moment she knew everything. Her expression went from shock to fury in seconds. It was you, she shouted. It was you, Alfredo. Her voice echoed throughout the floor. The employees came out of their offices. Everyone was watching the scene. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. She moved towards me. The officers stopped her. You need to calm down, ma'am. You could make your situation worse. Elena ignored them. She kept yelling at me. How dare you? How dare you do this to me? After everything we built together. After everything I did for you. That last phrase made me react. I took a step forward. Everything you did for me. I repeated. My voice was low but firm. You stole $4 million from our company. You created shell companies. You bought properties behind my back. You planned to go to Spain, leaving me with the debts, and you call me a useful donkey. You said I was only good for working, that I was convenient. That's what you did for me, Elena. Absolute silence. All the employees were watching us. Elena opened her mouth, but no words came out. For the first time in years, I saw her without answers, without strategies, without masks, just fear. Real fear of being discovered, fear of facing the consequences. One of the officers cleared his throat. Mrs. Martinez, you have the right to contact a lawyer. I suggest you do so. Elena gave me one last look full of hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. You'll regret this. Then she turned around, went into her office, slammed the door. The officers left. The employees slowly returned to their posts. Maria approached me. Her eyes were shining. Well done, Mr. Alfredo, she whispered. Well done. Ruben appeared from the stairs. He had heard everything. He looked at me with something like pride. I nodded in his direction. He returned the gesture. I went back to my office. I closed the door. I sat down. My hands were shaking. I had just confronted the person with whom I had shared 20 years of my life. The person I swore to love and protect, and I had reported her to the law. It was the right thing to do, but it hurt. It hurt like nothing had ever hurt before. Half an hour later, Nicholas stormed into the building like a hurricane. He ran up the stairs 2 at a time, entered Elena's office without knocking. I heard muffled shouts through the walls. They were arguing, fighting, blaming each other, probably trying to find a way out that didn't exist. Alvaro had explained everything to me. The court orders were immediate. All associated accounts were frozen. They couldn't move money. They couldn't sell properties. They couldn't flee. They were trapped in a net they had woven themselves. Nicholas came out 20 minutes later. His face was red with anger. He passed by my office, stopped, backed up, threw my door open, entered pointing his finger at me. Piece of trash, he spat. Do you think you're going to get away with this? I have contacts. I have lawyers. I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to take every last penny from you. I slowly stood up, looked him straight in the eye. You already took $4 million from me, Nicholas. You already stole years of my life. You already humiliated me, but it's over. Now you will face the consequences of your actions. He took a threatening step forward. I didn't back down. At that moment, 2 employees entered. They had heard the shouting. Mr. Alfredo, is everything okay? Nicholas gave me one last look of pure hatred. This isn't over, he growled. Then he left. slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I heard his steps going down the stairs, the slam of the main entrance, the engine of his car starting, the screech of tires speeding away. One of the employees gently closed my door. "Are you sure you're okay?" I nodded. "I'm fine, thank you." They left. They left me alone with the echo of Nicholas's threats still vibrating in the air. That afternoon, Elena left the building. I saw her from my window crossing the parking lot to her car. She walked stiffly, defeated. She got into the vehicle, sat motionless for several minutes, then started the car and left. She didn't come back that day or the next. Alvaro called me that night. Elena hired lawyers. Good lawyers. Expensive. They're going to fight. They're going to try to discredit the evidence. They're going to say you're making everything up out of spite, for revenge, that you're lying. You need to prepare for a war, Mr. Alfredo, a long and dirty war. I'm prepared, I replied. I have the truth on my side. I have the evidence. I have the documents. Let them fight all they want. Alvaro sighed. Good. Tomorrow we have a preliminary hearing. The judge will review the freezing orders. Elena's lawyers will ask to lift them. We will present evidence to maintain them. You must be present. I'll be there, I promised. I hung up. I looked around the empty house. Elena hadn't come back. She was probably at her mother's house or in a hotel. It didn't matter. This was no longer her house. It was no longer our home. It was simply a space filled with poisoned memories. The hearing was exactly as Alvaro predicted. Elena arrived accompanied by 3 lawyers in impeccable suits and leather briefcases. She saw me enter the courtroom. Her gaze was ice and fire simultaneously. Concentrated hatred. We sat on opposite sides. The judge entered. We all stood up. The presentation of arguments began. Elena's lawyers spoke first. They painted a picture where I was the villain, the controlling husband, the man who wanted to keep everything, who invented false accusations to destroy his wife, who manipulated evidence, who abused the judicial system. Alvaro responded with facts. He presented the bank statements, the transfers, the documents signed by Elena, the shell companies, the hidden properties, the plane tickets to Spain, the recording. When a judge heard Elena's voice calling me a useful donkey, saying I was only good for working, his expression changed. He looked at Elena with barely concealed disapproval. Her lawyers tried to argue that the recording was illegal, that it had been obtained without consent. Alvaro counter-argued. The recorder was in the company's office. Shared property. There was no expectation of privacy. The recordings was admissible. The judge deliberated for 15 minutes. He returned with his decision. The freezing orders remain in place. The accounts remain blocked until the case is resolved. In addition, I order a complete external audit of the company, an inventory of all assets, a travel ban for both defendants. He banged the gavel. Hearing adjourned. Elena jumped up like a spring. She yelled at the judge. This is unfair. This is abuse. You're in collusion with him. Her lawyers quieted her, quickly took her out of the courtroom before she made things worse. I left behind Alvaro. In the courthouse hallway, Elena was waiting for me. She broke free from her lawyers, moved towards me. Her face was a mask of fury. Everything we had, I built it, she hissed. I handled the money. I closed the important deals. You just followed orders. You just worked like an animal without thinking. And now you do this to me. You betray me. You destroy me. After giving you the best years of my life. I looked at her without blinking. The best years of your life were paid for with my work, with my effort, with my trust, and you wasted them by stealing from me, using me, laughing at me with your brother, calling me a donkey, calling me convenient. Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of impotent rage. I hate you, she whispered. I hate you, Alfredo. I wish I had never met you. I felt something break inside me, something that still held hope. Hope for what exactly, I didn't know. Maybe hope that she would say, I'm sorry. Hope that she would show even a glimpse of the person I thought I loved. But there was nothing, only hatred, only poison. I wish I had never met you too, I replied. It would have saved me 20 years of lies. I turned around, walked toward the exit. Alvaro caught up with me. Behind me, I heard Elena sobbing. Her lawyers were consoling her. leading her away. We left the courthouse into the bright midday sun. I took a deep breath. Alvaro put a hand on my shoulder. You did well in there. You kept your cool. You kept your composure. Now comes the hard part, the formal investigation, the interrogations. Maria and Ruben will have to testify. They'll have to testify about what they saw and heard. Will they be willing? I nodded. I've already spoken with them. They're willing. They're ready to tell the truth. The following days were strange. The company continued to operate, but with a palpable tension. Everyone knew what had happened. Some employees openly supported me. Others avoided my gaze. They probably thought I had been too harsh, that I should have resolved things privately, that airing dirty laundry in public was embarrassing, but I didn't care. I had done nothing wrong. I was the victim, not the victimizer. Elena returned once to the office just to pick up her personal belongings. She came escorted by her lawyers. She went into her old office. She came out 30 minutes later carrying a box with photographs and personal items. She didn't look at me. She didn't talk to anyone. She just left. Maria came to my office that afternoon. Mr. Alfredo, I need to tell you something I didn't tell you before. I sat up straight. What is it, Maria? She took a deep breath. Elena forced me to falsify documents, to change dates on contracts, to create invoices from suppliers that didn't exist. I did what she asked because I was scared, but I kept copies of everything. Copies she doesn't know exist. I have them at home, in a safe. I thought I might need them one day to protect myself, to prove that I was just following orders. Will you give them to me? I asked. She nodded. I'll give them to you. I'll give you all of them to use as you need. That night, Maria brought 3 folders full of documents. Fake invoices, altered contracts, emails where Elena gave specific instructions. Additional evidence, irrefutable evidence. I gave it to Alvaro the next day. He reviewed it with ever-widening eyes. This is pure gold, Mr. Alfredo. With this, they have no defense. They can't claim ignorance. They can't blame third parties. It's all here in black and white, signed by her. The judicial process moved faster than expected. The prosecutors took the case with enthusiasm. It was a clear, well-documented corporate fraud with solid evidence. They called Maria to testify first. She arrived at the courthouse, trembling. Alvaro and I accompanied her. We encouraged her. We reminded her that she was doing the right thing, that telling the truth would set her free. She entered the room. She was there for 3 hours answering questions. When she came out, her eyes were red, but her back was straight. I did it, she said. I told them everything. Every detail, every order she gave me, every document she forced me to falsify. I hugged her. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your courage. Ruben testified 2 days later. He arrived in his best clothes, a pressed white shirt, dark pants, polished shoes. He wanted to look presentable. He wanted to be taken seriously. He went in nervous, but came out calm. He told me later what he had said. I explained that I cleaned the offices at night, that I heard conversations because they thought I was alone, that nobody notices the cleaning staff, that we're invisible to important people. But I heard them, I saw them. I saw them counting money, laughing at you, planning to leave you with nothing. And my soul ached, but I was afraid to speak, afraid of losing my job, my livelihood, until I couldn't take it anymore. Elena's lawyers tried to discredit both of them. They said Maria was resentful, that she had been fired and was seeking revenge. They lied. Maria was never fired. She was still working. They said Ruben was a simple cleaning employee, uneducated, without credibility, that he probably misinterpreted what he heard. But the evidence spoke louder than their arguments. The documents Maria provided matched the bank records perfectly, the dates, the amounts. Everything fit together like puzzle pieces. Elena had to testify. She was formally subpoenaed. She couldn't refuse. She arrived at the courthouse, surrounded by her lawyers. She wore a dark gray, sober suit, trying to look professional, respectable, but her body language betrayed her. Tense shoulders, clenched jaw, hands that wouldn't stop moving. She entered the room. She was interrogated for 4 hours. When she came out, her mask of control had disappeared. She looked shattered, defeated. Her lawyers immediately surrounded her. They took her out through a side exit. avoiding the press that had started to follow the case. Alvaro called me that night. Elena's testimony was a disaster for her defense. She contradicted herself multiple times. She lied about things we can prove with documents. She said she didn't know the offshore companies, then admitted she did, but that they were legitimate investments. Then she changed her story again. The prosecutor tore her apart, made her look like what she is, a liar, a thief. Her brother testified the next day. It was worse. Nicholas tried to blame Elena for everything. He said he was just following her instructions, that she was the mastermind behind everything, that he was a victim too, a coward to the end. The prosecution filed formal charges: aggravated fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, forgery of documents. The charges against Elena totaled a potential 20 years in prison. The charges against Nicholas, 15 years. Their lawyers tried to negotiate. They offered to return the money in exchange for a reduced sentence, but the prosecution wasn't interested. They wanted to make an example, to show that corporate fraud has serious consequences, that no one is above the law, not even respectable business people. Meanwhile, the external audit was completed. The auditors found exactly what we expected. For $1,200,000 diverted, properties bought with corporate funds, shell companies created just to move money. The report was devastating. 150 pages of meticulously documented evidence, every transaction tracked, every account exposed. There was nowhere to hide, no way to deny the undeniable. The trial began 3 months after the first complaints. It was public, the courtroom was full. Journalists, curious onlookers, employees from the company who wanted to see the end of the story. Elena and Nicholas sat together at the defense table. They no longer spoke, no longer looked at each other. Fear and guilt had separated them, each trying to save their own skin, without loyalty, without honor, exactly as they had acted with me. The prosecutor presented the case brilliantly. He laid out the evidence chronologically. He showed how it started with small amounts. Inflated invoices for a few $100s. Then it grew to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, until it became millions. He showed the recordings where Elena called me a useful donkey, where she said I was only good for working. The courtroom reacted. Murmurs of disapproval. The judge had a call for silence. Elena buried her head, unable to look at anyone. The witnesses paraded. Maria told her story. Ruben his. Employees who had noticed irregularities but didn't dare to speak. The forensic accountant explained the entire scheme, how it worked, how they had hidden the money, how they planned to disappear. Elena's lawyers tried to cross-examine. They tried to find inconsistencies. They didn't find any. The truth is solid. It doesn't break under pressure. It was my turn to testify. I went up to the stand, put my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor guided me through my story. How I met Elena, how we built the company together, how I trusted her completely, how I discovered the betrayal. I spoke calmly, clearly, without drama, just facts, just truth. Elena's lawyers tried to break me. Isn't it true that you also benefited from the diverted money? No, I replied. That money never reached my hands. Isn't it true that you knew what was happening and simply ignored it? No, I never knew until that night. Isn't it true that you're doing this for revenge? No, I'm doing it for justice. There's a difference. The cross-examination lasted 2 hours. It achieved nothing. I maintained my version consistent, honest, without contradictions. When I stepped down from the stand, I saw Elena. For a moment, our gazes met. In her eyes, I saw something I didn't expect. Not hatred, not rage, resignation. She knew she had lost. She knew her life as she knew it had ended. She looked away, lowered her head. It was over. The closing arguments lasted a full day. The prosecutor summarized the case, presented Elena and Nicholas as what they were: thieves, manipulators, people who betrayed trust, who destroyed lives, who deserved the full weight of the law. The defense lawyers tried to generate compassion. They talked about families, about mistakes, about second chances, but their words sounded hollow against the mountain of evidence. The jury deliberated for 3 days, 3 eternal days where I couldn't sleep, where I walked through my empty house wondering what came next. If we would win, if we would lose, if all this pain had been worth it. Alvaro called me every night, kept me informed, encouraged me. On the fourth day, I received the message. The jury has a verdict. We returned to the courtroom. Elena and Nicholas were already there, pale, scared. The judge entered. We all stood up. He sat down, called the jury foreman, an older man with a serious expression. Have you reached a verdict? Yes, Your Honor. How do you find the defendants on the charge of aggravated fraud? Guilty. On the charge of embezzlement. Guilty. On the charge of money laundering. Guilty. On the charge of forgery of documents. Guilty. Elena sobbed. Her mother shouted from the benches. Nicholas closed his eyes. Defeated. The judge banged the gavel. Order. Order in the court. He proceeded to read the formal verdicts. Guilty on all charges. Sentencing to be delivered in 2 weeks. The bailiffs approached. They put handcuffs on Elena and Nicholas, took them out of the courtroom. Elena looked for me with her gaze one last time. In that moment, there was no more rage, only sadness, only regret for being caught, not for what she did, but for the consequences. The 2 weeks until sentencing were surreal. The news of the verdict spread quickly. The media covered the case extensively. Respected businesswoman convicted of defrauding her husband. The headlines were sensational. Some painted me as a hero, others as a vengeful villain. I tried to ignore them, to stay focused on rebuilding what was left of my life. The company continued to operate. The employees remained loyal. They knew the truth. They knew I was the victim. Maria temporarily took over the administrative functions that Elena handled. We discovered she was extremely capable. She just needed the opportunity. Ruben continued to work every night, but now he walked differently, with his head held high, without fear. He would occasionally seek me out to chat, to tell me about his family, his children. He repeatedly thanked me for not firing him, for listening to him, for giving importance to his words. I told him I was the one who should thank him. Without his courage, I would never have discovered the truth. I would never have been able to act. He saved me from additional years of lies, from losing even more. Elena's mother tried to contact me, left messages, emails, asking for compassion, asking me to drop the charges. She said Elena had made a mistake, that she deserved forgiveness, that families should stick together. I deleted all the messages without replying. There was nothing to discuss. Elena didn't make a mistake. She made thousands of conscious decisions for 5 years. She planned, she executed, she laughed at me. That wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate betrayal and betrayals of consequences. Alvaro prepared me for the sentencing hearing. The judge will hear victim statements. You can speak if you want. You can tell the judge how this affected you, how it changed your life. It's not mandatory, but can influence the sentence. Do you want to do it? I thought carefully. Did I want to stand in front of Elena one last time? Did I want to tell the world how I felt? I decided yes. I needed to close this chapter completely. I needed to get everything I'd kept inside out. I wrote my statement that night, words that came directly from a broken heart. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was packed again. Elena arrived in handcuffs. She wore simple clothes, no makeup. She looked 10 years older. The weight of guilt and fear had transformed her face. Nicholas arrived separately, also in handcuffs, also destroyed. They sat without looking at each other. The judge entered. The proceedings began. First, the prosecutor spoke. He recommended severe sentences. These crimes affected not only the direct victim, but the entire company, the employees who trusted in the integrity of their leaders, the suppliers, the clients. They deserve the maximum punishment allowed by law. The defense lawyers spoke next. They asked for clemency. They talked about broken families, first offenses, genuine remorse, but their arguments sounded hollow. Especially when the judge asked them directly, "Did your clients return the stolen money?" The lawyers stammered, "No, Your Honor, they haven't had access to their accounts." The judge nodded with a stern expression. Then I see no genuine remorse, only regret for being caught. It was my turn. They called me to the front. I walked to the podium. I took a deep breath. I looked at the judge. I looked at Elena. I began to read my statement. Your Honor, for 20 years I thought I was building a life with my wife. I thought we were partners, companions, equals. I worked 18 hours a day. I sacrificed time, health, opportunities, everything for what I thought was our shared future. Discovering that while I gave everything, she was stealing from me was devastating. But what really destroyed me wasn't the money, it was the humiliation. My voice broke slightly. I continued. I heard recordings where she called me a useful donkey, where she said I was only good for working, that I was convenient. 20 years reduced to that. Convenient, not husband, not partner, convenient like an object, like a tool. She didn't steal money. She stole my dignity, my trust in people, my ability to believe and love. She left scars that no sentence can heal. But I need justice. I need the law to recognize that what she did was wrong, that no one deserves to be used like that, that trust is sacred and breaking it has consequences. I finished my statement. I returned to my seat. The courtroom was in absolute silence. The judge took notes. Then he addressed Elena. Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence? Elena stood up trembling. Her voice was barely audible. I'm sorry, so sorry. I don't know what else to say. I made terrible mistakes. I hurt the person who least deserved to be hurt. If I could go back in time, I would, but I can't. I can only ask for forgiveness. The judge studied her for a long time. Mrs. Martinez, your actions were calculated, systematic, prolonged. This was not a momentary mistake. It was a sustained campaign of deceit and theft. Remorse after being caught does not mitigate the seriousness of your crimes. He turned to Nicholas. And you? Nicholas stood up. He tried to shift blame. He said he only helped his sister, that he didn't know it was so bad. The judge raised his hand. Enough. Your own previous statements contradict you. You were an active accomplice. You benefited directly. Don't try to deny your guilt now. Nicholas sat down defeated. The judge reviewed documents, consulted the penal code. Finally, he spoke. Elena Martinez, I sentence you to 14 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 7 years. Additionally, I order full restitution of the $4,200,000 stolen plus interest and punitive damages. All your properties will be seized and sold to cover this debt. Elena collapsed. Her sobs filled the courtroom. The judge continued relentlessly. Nicholas Martinez, I sentence you to 11 years in prison with no possibility of parole for the first 5 years. Same restitution order. Same financial consequences. He banged the gavel. Sentence delivered. The bailiffs helped Elena to her feet. They took her out of the courtroom. She passed by me without looking. Nicholas followed, also avoiding my gaze. They disappeared through the back doors towards the cells, towards years of confinement. I left the courthouse feeling something strange. It wasn't happiness, wasn't satisfaction. It was simply closure, justice, the confirmation that I did the right thing, that defending my dignity was worth it. Alvaro was waiting for me outside. He patted my back. It's over. You can start healing now. You can rebuild your life. I nodded. Yes, finally I can. The following months were about rebuilding. Elena and Nicholas's properties were seized, sold at public auction. The recovered money was deposited into the company's accounts. I didn't get everything back. The legal expenses, the losses from interest, the collateral damage, but I recovered enough to stabilize the business, to pay bonuses to loyal employees, to move on. I promoted Maria to administrative director. She deserved it. She had shown integrity when it was easier to stay quiet. She had risked her job to do the right thing. I gave her a significant raise. I gave her a share of the profits. She cried when I told her the news. Thank you, Mr. Alfredo. Thank you for trusting me. No, thank you, Maria, for being brave, for being honest, for reminding me that there are still good people in the world. Ruben also received recognition. I offered him a better position. Maintenance supervisor, with triple the salary, with benefits. At first, he didn't believe it. He thought it was a joke. When he understood it was real, he cried. Mr. Alfredo, I only did the right thing. I didn't deserve this. Yes, you do, Ruben. You had the courage that many don't have. You broke the silence when it was dangerous to do so. You saved my life. That deserves recognition. Life without Elena was strangely quiet. The first few months were difficult. Waking up in an empty bed, having breakfast alone, coming home to a silent house. But slowly the silence stopped being painful. It became peace, space to think, to rediscover myself, to remember who I was before I became that useful donkey who worked without questioning anything. I started doing things I had given up. I went back to the gym. I resumed reading. I went for walks in the afternoons, small things that brought back my humanity. The employees noticed the change. Mr. Alfredo looks better. He looks younger, lighter. They were right. I had lost 10 kilograms. The dark circles under my eyes had disappeared. I smiled more. It wasn't full happiness yet, but it was the beginning of something similar. Maria organized a lunch with all the staff, an informal celebration. They wanted to show their support, their solidarity. It was emotional. Employees who had been working with me for years came up to shake my hand, to tell me they always believed in me, that they knew I was a good man, that I deserved justice. Ruben gave a small speech. He talked about how I always treated him with respect, how I never made him feel less for being a cleaning employee, how that gave him the courage to speak up when he saw injustice. Mr. Alfredo taught me that dignity doesn't depend on the position, it depends on how we treat others. And he always treated everyone with dignity. That's why, when I saw him suffering, I couldn't stay quiet, because good people deserve protection. The room erupted in applause. I stood up, hugged Ruben. This man saved me. I will never forget it. The company started to grow again. Without the constant drain of diverted money, we had capital to invest, to expand. We opened a new branch. We hired more staff. The clients who had left during the scandal came back. They appreciated the transparency, the honesty with which we handled the crisis. We had nothing. We admitted the fraud. We showed that we resolved it legally, that we were a serious, reliable company. The contracts started coming in again. One afternoon, I received a letter. It came from the prison where Elena was. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope. I hesitated whether to open it. I was tempted to throw it away without reading, but curiosity won. I opened it. Inside were 3 handwritten pages. It began with apologies, Alfredo. I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I am Trudisore. Locked up here, I have time to think, to see everything I destroyed. I didn't just hurt you. I hurt myself. I ruined my life for greed, for stupidity. She continued explaining how she got to that point, how it started with small amounts, how she convinced herself she deserved more, that she worked hard too, that you would never notice. How Nicholas encouraged her, convinced her it was easy, safe, how the lie grew until it consumed her. She ended by asking for forgiveness. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to reply. I just needed to tell you that I understand the harm I caused, that if I could change everything I would, that you were a good husband, a good man, and you deserve none of what I did to you. I am sorry, Alfredo. With all my heart, I'm sorry. I read the letter 3 times. I searched for emotions inside myself. I searched for traces of the love I once felt for her. I found nothing, only indifference. Forgiveness would come eventually, maybe, but not yet. Not when the wounds were still fresh. I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. She needed to write it for her own sanity. I didn't need to reply for mine. 6 more months passed. The routine became comfortable, predictable in a good way. The company prospered. I prospered. I started going out occasionally, dinners with friends, social events. Nothing serious, just reconnecting with the world. One night, at a business dinner, I met someone. Her name was Diana, an independent accountant, 48 years old. Also divorced. We talked all night. We discovered common interests, similar stories of betrayal and recovery. We exchanged numbers. We started texting. Nothing romantic yet, just friendship. But there was something there, a possibility, a potential future. I wouldn't rush. I had learned my lesson. Trust is built slowly, with actions, with time, with consistency. Diana understood that. She had also been hurt. She had also rebuilt her life from scratch. We took things slowly, occasional coffees, walks in the park, deep conversations about life, about mistakes, about second chances. It was refreshing to be with someone who understood the pain without needing elaborate explanations. A year after the verdict, I organized a special meeting at the company. I summoned all the employees. I prepared an important announcement. When they were gathered, I took the microphone. I want to thank you for your loyalty during the most difficult year of my life. Many of you could have left, looked for jobs in places without scandals, without drama, but you stayed. You trusted me. You worked hard, and thanks to you, this company not only survived, it prospered. Today, I want to share that prosperity. This year, we will distribute bonuses equivalent to 15% of each employee's annual salary. In addition, we will implement a profit-sharing program. From now on, we are all partners in the success of this company. The announcement was met with disbelief first, then with tears, with applause, with hugs. Maria came up crying. Mr. Alfredo, this is too much. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Maria. You saved me. You believed in me when many doubted. This is just a small way of saying thank you. Ruben was in the back. When our eyes met, he gave a thumbs up. He smiled. This humble man who had the courage to break the silence, who risked everything to do the right thing. He deserved this and more. That night, I went home feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Fullness. Not because I had everything figured out, not because the pain had completely disappeared, but because I had recovered something essential: my dignity, my self-respect, the ability to look at myself in the mirror without shame, without questions, without doubts. I had faced the betrayal. I had sought justice. I had rebuilt my life, and I had done it without losing my humanity, without becoming bitter, without letting hatred consume me. Diana called me that night. She asked me how my day had been. I told her about the announcement, about the employees' reaction. She got emotional. That's beautiful, Alfredo, sharing success with those who made it possible. Not many people do that. Most only think of themselves. You're different. That's why I like you. Her words warmed my heart. Maybe I was ready to trust again, to open up again, slowly, carefully, but ready. Alvaro contacted me. He also had news. Elena had requested a sentence reduction for good behavior. Her petition was denied. She still had many years of prison left. Nicholas had tried to appeal his sentence, also denied. Both would serve their full sentences. How does that make you feel? Alvaro asked. I thought before answering. It doesn't make me happy, but it makes me feel that there is justice, that actions have consequences, that no one is above the law. That's enough for me. Alvaro approved. You've healed a lot, Alfredo. You've grown. I'm proud to have represented you. I didn't just win a case. I helped a good man get his life back. 2 years have passed since that night Ruben whispered his warning. 2 years since I discovered that my life was a carefully constructed lie. 2 years since my legs gave out in front of that closed office. Today, when I look back, I see the path traveled with a clarity that only distance gives. I see the broken man I was. I see the rebuilt man I am now. And although the scars remain, they no longer bleed. The company has completely transformed. It's no longer just my business, it's our business. Of Maria, who runs the finances with absolute transparency. Of Ruben, who supervises operations with unwavering dedication. Of every employee who chose to stay when it was easier to leave. Together we built something more solid than what Elena and I had, because it's founded on honesty, on mutual respect, on shared dignity. Last year our profits surpassed any previous year, not because we stole, but because we worked better, more united, more conscious. Diana and I have been in a formal relationship for 6 months. We're not rushing. We build trust brick by brick. She knows my whole story. I know hers. We don't judge each other for our pasts. We support each other in our presents. We get excited about our futures. We have dinner together 3 times a week. We travel occasionally. We talk about everything, fears, hopes, mistakes we don't want to repeat. It's different from what I had with Elena. More mature, more real, less romantic maybe, but infinitely more genuine. Maria got married 3 months ago. Her wedding was beautiful. She invited me as her best man. She said I had restored her faith that doing the right thing is worth it, that thanks to me her children saw that honesty has rewards, that courage makes sense. During her wedding speech, she mentioned how she almost lost everything by staying quiet, how she found the courage to speak up, how that changed her life for the better. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Afterwards, we danced, we laughed, we celebrated not only her marriage, but her freedom from the fear that had held her prisoner for years. Reuben bought a house, his first own home. He invited me to the housewarming. I came with Diana. We met his wife, his 3 children. They all received me like family. Reuben showed every corner with childish pride. Look, Mr. Alfredo, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small garden, but it's mine. All thanks to you. I stopped him. No, Reuben, thanks to you. You work hard. You saved, you achieved it. I just gave you the opportunity you always deserved. He hugged me, cried on my shoulder. This man who risked everything to tell me the truth. This man whom society considered invisible. He had more integrity than many businessmen I knew. I received letters from Elena every 3 months. I read them all. They don't hurt me anymore. She writes about her life in prison, about therapy, about facing her demons, about finally understanding the magnitude of what she destroyed. She says she found work in the prison library, that she helps other inmates with basic education, that she's trying to do something good with the time she has left. I don't answer the letters yet. No. Maybe one day, maybe when forgiveness stops feeling like betraying myself. I'm in no hurry. Forgiveness will come when it has to come, or it won't. And that's okay too. Nicholas tried to contact me once through an intermediary. He wanted to apologize. He wanted my forgiveness. I refused the meeting. With Nicholas, there's nothing to discuss. We were never close. We were never friends. He was just my wife's brother, the accomplice to my betrayal. I don't owe him my time. I don't owe him my attention. I owe him exactly nothing. He'll serve his sentence. He'll pay his debt to society. And that's enough. I've learned important things in these 2 years. I've learned that trust is a gift, not a right, that it must be earned day by day, that it can be destroyed in seconds, but it takes years to rebuild. I've learned that dignity is not negotiable, that allowing abuse is not love, that staying quiet is not peace, that sometimes the bravest act is to defend yourself. I've learned that people show you who they are. You just need to pay attention, to listen not only to words, but to actions, to see not only what they do in front of you, but what they do when they think no one is looking. I've learned about the value of humble people. Reuben didn't have a college education. He didn't have impressive titles, but he had something more important: character, integrity, humanity. He risked his livelihood to do the right thing. How many executives with master's degrees and doctorates would do the same? How many would choose complicit silence? How many would look the other way to protect their position? Reuben, no. Reuben chose the truth, even when it was dangerous. That's worth more than any diploma. I've learned that shared success is more satisfying than individual success. Seeing my employees thrive, seeing their families improve, seeing their children go to better schools. That fills me more than any personal bank account. Elena accumulated millions just for herself. I build wealth to share, and I sleep better than her. That has to mean something. I've learned that healing isn't forgetting. The wounds remain, but they stop defining you. Elena called me a useful donkey. Those words haunted me for months. They woke me up at night. Today, I hear them in my memory, and I feel indifference because I know she was wrong. I'm not a useful donkey. I'm a hard-working, reliable, loyal man. Those are virtues, not weaknesses. Elena confused kindness with stupidity, trust with naivety. She was wrong, and she paid the price. I've learned that it's never too late to start over. I'm 54 years old. Many would say it's too late to rebuild a life, to find love, to be happy. But here I am with a thriving company, with Diana by my side, with true friends, with renewed purpose. Age is just a number. What matters is the will to keep going, not to give up, to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. This morning I woke up early. I made coffee. I sat on the balcony watching the sunrise. Diana was still asleep. The house was quiet, peaceful. I thought of the man I was 2 years ago, broken, humiliated, lost. I wanted to tell him something. I wanted to tell him that the worst is over, that he will survive, that he will become stronger, that he will find justice, that he will recover his dignity, that he will smile again, that he will trust again, that he will live again. I wanted to tell him that it's worth fighting, that it's worth defending yourself, that he should never accept scraps when he deserves the full banquet. If I've learned anything from all this, it's that dignity is not begged for, it's not negotiated, it's not sacrificed for comfort. Dignity is defended, it's protected, it's honored, even if it costs everything, even if it hurts, even if the whole world tells you you're cruel, you're vengeful, you should forgive and forget. No, some things are not forgotten. Some betrayals don't deserve immediate forgiveness. Some battles must be fought to the end. Elena is in prison. Nicholas too. I'm here free, rebuilt, living the life I deserve from the beginning, a life built on truth, on respect, on equality. Diana is my partner, not my boss, not my employee, my equal. Maria is my partner, respected and valued. Ruben is my friend, not my servant, my true friend. This is the life I should have always had. This is the life I finally have. To those who are going through something similar, I say this. You're not weak for trusting. You're human. You're not foolish for believing in people. You're noble. But when you discover betrayal, don't stay silent. Don't accept excuses. Don't let them convince you that you're exaggerating. Trust your instinct. Seek the truth. Defend yourself because no one else will do it for you. And always remember, always, your dignity is not negotiable. Never make yourself small to fit into the life of someone who doesn't value you. Today the sun is shining, the company is thriving, my heart is healing, and for the first time in years I feel complete, not because I have everything, but because I have what matters: truth, dignity, respect, freedom. And no one can ever take that away from me again.